In this example, we're going to use number lines to find opposites of numbers. Use the number line to plot the given number and use the reflection line to find the opposite. So first we're asked to plot the number 5. So notice there's a reflection line given because when we find an opposite, we reflect the number about this line at 0. So this is 0, and I'm going to write in some of these numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And let's scale the other numbers, or label the other numbers. -2, -3, -4, and -5. So now let's plot 5. So there's no sign in front of it, so that means it's a positive number. And here's our number 5. Now we're going to use the reflection line to find the opposite of 5. So you could think of the reflection line as a mirror. Let's use blue to show that we are going to reflect from 5 across this reflection line, equidistant on the other side, and we will plot -5 with this pink dot. So we have found that the opposite of 5 is -5. Let's look at the next example. Use the number line to plot the given number and use the reflection line to find the opposite. So first we're going to plot the number -1. So I'm going to start at 0. -1 would be in this direction. And I'm just going to label the points. And then I'm going to label the positive values. And 5. So now -1 is right here, and now we're going to reflect -1 about this reflection line an equal distance to find the opposite of -1. So that's where we'd go. And this number right here, 1, is the opposite of -1. So the opposite of -1 is 1, or positive 1. Let's look at the next one. Plot the number line, use the number line to plot the given number and use the reflection line to find the opposite. So we're asked to plot the number, the absolute value of -3. So let's remember what the absolute value of -3 means. Well, we label our number line. We know that the absolute value of -3 is -3's positive distance from 0. Okay. So here's -3. Okay. The absolute value of -3 is this distance, which is 1, 2, 3 away from 0. So we're going to write that the absolute value of -3 equals 3. Okay. And we're going to plot that right here. Okay. So this is the absolute value of -3. Now we're asked to find its opposite. So the opposite of the absolute value of -3, well, that's going to be our reflection about the reflection line, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 in this direction. So this is our opposite. So the opposite of the absolute value of -3 is -3. Okay. Now notice something important here. Another way to write the opposite of is to use what we've called the negative symbol, but it can also be used as the opposite symbol. So the opposite of the absolute value of -3. Okay? And it may be tempting to see these two negatives and cancel them out if you've learned that in school before. But this problem is to show us that that is not the case. That is not what we're going to do. First, you evaluate the absolute value of negative 3, which is 3. And then this is the opposite of 3, which is equivalent to negative 3. Let's look at the last one. Plot the number negative 4 and the number the opposite of negative 4. So let's label our number line. So first let's start by plotting negative 4. Just underline that we plotted that in black. And now let's plot the opposite of negative 4. Okay? Well, the opposite of negative 4 is reflecting negative 4 across the reflection line at 0. So that's going to take us to here. So we have negative 4, the opposite of negative 4, and then our question asks us for the opposite of the opposite of negative 4. So let's use a different color. Well, this is the opposite of negative 4, so we need to take the opposite of this quantity, and I'm going to reflect underneath, and notice we get right back at negative 4. So the opposite of negative 4 is negative 4. So notice this would be a string of the opposite of the opposite of negative 4. Okay. So this was equivalent to starting at negative 4, taking the opposite once by reflecting, taking the opposite again by reflecting back. So every two opposites undo each other. One takes you to maybe the positive direction and the other to the negative direction. So even though these problems seem very complicated with all of these extra signs in there, any two really cancel each other out and undo each other.